This is Indian History Thali by Thali, where we ask archaeologists and historians how they know what they know about India's past. In this series, we will focus on Indian history through the lens of food, and for this episode, we are particularly interested in what the Cholas were eating. But wait, before we get to what the Cholas were eating, let's ask a simpler question. Who were the Cholas? The Cholas were a Tamil dynasty that ruled large parts of South India for centuries, with their most powerful phase between the 9th and the 13th centuries. From their heartland in the Kaveri Delta, they controlled fertile rice growing regions, temple cities like Tanjavur, and major ports along the coast. Under kings like Rajaraja Chola and Rajendra Chola, the Cholas also became a naval power. They ruled Sri Lanka and sent ships across the Indian Ocean to Southeast Asia, not to settle and govern, but to protect trade routes and assert influence. So when we ask historian C. N. Subramaniam what the Cholas ate, we're really asking, what does food look like in an empire so spread out and diverse?
The Chola Empire consists of the hills, it has the littoral tracts, it has the uplands, it has pastoral tracts, it has agricultural tracts, and each region has its own specific cuisine. Very rich diversity of food culture. Sources tell us only part of the story. For example, there are temple inscriptions, so they'll tell us only about what was happening in and around temples. Or the literary texts are telling us about viewpoint of a particular religious sect. Okay, so we don't really know what was the food culture of all kinds of people living in that society.
To answer that question, let us turn to a remarkable source from the Chola period called the Periya Puranam. What kind of window does this text give us into everyday Chola life and food?
Periya Puranam is a text which is a kind of a social encyclopedia for the Chola period. It talks about people from totally diverse communities and also diverse strata of society who are devotees of Shiva. They could be washermen, they could be hunter-gatherers, they could be untouchable agricultural workers, they can be kings. So if I talk about the top of the society, which is the rulers, which include administrators, generals, rich landlords, and courtesans and other people, we see a range of food which would include hunted animals, which would include poultry, which would include drinks of diverse kind, both scented, aromatic, cool drinks, different ways in which even something like buttermilk is flavored. Then you have rice preparations of different kind and different kind of alcohol. It could be toddy, it could be imported wine from abroad, but also the range of spices that are mentioned that were available to them were probably far less than what was available to kings of the medieval times. Or I would say Vijayanagara or the Delhi Sultanate period or the Mughal period. It's limited to something like pepper and cardamom and zira and ginger and turmeric, mustard.
Well, that sounds like what the rich ate. What about the others?
Let me move from the elite then to hunter-gatherers. So the food that they ate included not just forest produce like honey and some vegetables and millet, but also rice and of course meat of hunted animals. Then we come to the pastoral people, and the pastoral people would have eaten a whole range of things, but dairy products were very important in their food and millets were very important in their food. Then we have the Pulaya community, or a community which was considered untouchable in those days. Agricultural laborers were part of the agricultural society but lived in separate hamlets outside the village. And there is detailed description. We don't talk about the food eaten by them, but the kind of ambience that is built about that settlement, a hamlet of the Pulayas, gives an indication of the kind of food they would have eaten. For example, we are told about creepers of bottle gourd or shorekai growing over their huts, and obviously therefore they ate some of that, and different kinds of gourds must have been part of their food. Lot of meat is strewn around. Uh, the women are dancing, having drunk alcohol, kallu or toddy. Women are also seen as pounding grain or dehusking rice. So, rice must have been part of their diet. They are shown as producing what is called gorochene, which is used in temple worship, but it's actually extracted from the guts of dead cattle. Similarly, nerves and other parts of the body were used for making stringed instruments, and the skins were used for making drums. Now, all this is part of the Pulaya culture, therefore, the kind of food that they ate is derived from that. When you talk about the poor farmers, among the poor farmers, probably we are told that they were vegetarians, so we believe them. They would have eaten just bare rice with some dal, or cook it with greens and some vegetables and eat it.
Food in Chola society wasn't just about what was cooked, but when, why, and who got to eat first. Seasons, festivals, prayer, and hunger shaped how food was shared between different groups of people.
In most of the present cultures in India, food is not just what you eat. It's a lot other thing, you know, what you eat in, how you eat, how it is served. Of course, one of the things that goes into before you eat is that it has to be offered to the gods. Offering of foods to ancestors is involved, to animals is involved, and that links you up to the entire social and also animal kingdom around you. All along the Tamil history, and if you look at the entire range of Tamil literature all the way from Sangam period till 19th century, before the colonial period sets in, you will find a persistent recognition of hunger as a major issue in society and culture and people's lives. In the Brahmanic tradition too, Uddalaka Aruni asks his son, what have you learned from your school? He tells him all the Vedas and lists various things he has learned. So his father says, okay, son, you go and fast for 15 days and come back. He comes back. So the son says, sorry, I can't remember a thing. You know, I'm too hungry, I can't remember a thing. Actually, this is something which is linked later on to the obsession with feeding Brahmins. Feeding Brahmins is necessary to keep the Vedas alive. But the same idea is across the board. The Buddhists and the Jaina monks and other renunciates, they have to be fed by someone, and the householder's job is to feed them. Even cultural carriers like bards, dancers, like theatre people. So the culture is also maintained by your feeding people who come to you. There is yet another kind of feeding which is built into the social fabric, and that is feeding your social inferiors. It could be your servants, it could be your slaves, it could be the untouchables working under you. These are actually fed through leftovers. The feeding of people through leftovers is a mark of their subordination and also a kind of intimate relationship with the slave owner or their employer and so on.
Food in the Chola world was shaped by hunger and by clear social rules about sharing food. These rules were part of everyday life and everyone understood them. But Chola society was not made up of just one religion. Even though we often link the Cholas with Shaivism because of their temples, Buddhists and Jains also lived in Chola towns and villages, and their beliefs shaped everyday practices including how food was served.
Where food is served is of great importance. Now, if you look at Perumbanatru, it actually lists the variety of leaves in which food was served. One of them is sewing together teak leaves. And if you go to Brahmanic household or in the agricultural region, you will find people serving you food on banana leaves. Now that is very different from serving a mendicant. The mendicants always came with a bowl. Now, when you put food into a bowl, everything gets mixed in it. It cannot stay separate. A mendicant's bowl therefore indicates the mendicant's state of mind, where the individuality of the taste of the items served doesn't matter to them. And if you go to any Buddhist vihara, you would find a huge begging bowl kept outside the vihara for the people to come and put in their offerings, food offerings, or probably we don't know any other offerings. The same tradition you will find in Shaiva tradition also. Shiva himself goes around with a begging bowl which is made of skull. The Jaina Shramanas go a step further. They don't even carry a begging bowl. They just hold out their hands. So feeding people is ingrained into the whole cultural ethos. And interestingly, our sources on food actually come from how different kinds of people are fed.
So then let's loop back to our original question. What were the Cholas eating? Rice in many preparations, millets, dairy products, forest produce like honey and vegetables, bottle gourds and greens, pulses, hunted meat and poultry, toddy and sometimes even imported wine, spices such as pepper, cardamom, cumin, ginger, turmeric, and mustard. But the plate was not the same for everyone. Elites ate differently from pastoralists. Hunter-gatherers ate differently from agricultural laborers. We know this from temple inscriptions, from texts like the Periya Puranam, and from descriptions of how people were fed. Not from recipes, but from fragments. And from those fragments, historians begin to reconstruct the Chola Thali.